The story. I'm a 34-year-old woman with an older sister, Carol, who's 37. To put it bluntly, Carol isn't the best person. We grew up in poverty after our dad passed away when we were young. Our mother, unfortunately, was more focused on drinking than finding a decent job to support us. My paternal grandparents wanted nothing to do with us, and our mom had been orphaned as a teenager, making our situation even more challenging. Despite our tough upbringing, I made a conscious decision to work hard and build a better future for myself. I became a high school teacher, aiming for stability and a meaningful career. On the contrary, Carol took a different path. Instead of pursuing a steady job, she decided to target wealthy men, trapping them into relationships with the goal of financial security. Her first catch was at a nightclub where she worked as a bartender. The establishment attracted corporate men eager to regain their youth, and Carol found her first husband there. From then on, she spiraled into a pattern, having 7 kids and being on the verge of her third marriage last week. Her oldest child is a 15-year-old son, and her youngest is just 4 years old. The dynamics of her expanding family are complex, including 2 kids from her first marriage, triplets from her second, and now 2 daughters from her latest partner. All her partners have been affluent men in their 40s or 50s. However, her most recent fiancé, Dean, a 40-year-old man, made her wait before agreeing to marriage. After 5 pregnancies, Carol understandably looks older, and pushing 40 didn't work in her favor. While she's still considered attractive for her age, Dean wasn't initially keen on the idea of marriage. It took considerable effort from Carol to convince him to tie the knot. Despite her complicated life choices, I was well aware of Carol's routine. So, Carol had already managed to baby trap her most recent partner by deceiving him about taking the morning after pills, resulting in 2 children. The next step in her calculated plan was to push for marriage, a feat she had easily accomplished in her previous relationships. Her strategy typically involved getting one of her friends to flirt with her husband, leading to infidelity, a divorce, and a significant financial gain through settlements, alimony, and child support. Despite her controversial lifestyle, Carol was financially well off, much more than her sister. While I kept in touch with Carol, our interactions were limited to once or twice a month, usually centered around our visits to our mother, who now lived with our brother. Our brother had been our caregiver during our mother's drunken episodes. And after completing our education, I pursued a career while Carol decided to skip college and move out. Eventually, our mother sold the house and moved in with our brother's family. However, the dynamics of our relationship changed recently when Carol reached out to me about 2 weeks ago. She explained that she needed me to babysit her 7 kids for a week as she prepared for her upcoming wedding. Uncertain about handling such a responsibility alone, I agreed to help, but not without negotiating a fair payment. I quoted a price of $2,500 for the week, a sum I considered reasonable, possibly even less than what a professional babysitter might charge. Surprisingly, Carol contested the amount, arguing that it was too high and, as her sister, I shouldn't charge her at all. This stance was perplexing, given her financial stability and the fact that she lived rent-free with her partner, benefiting from the wealth accumulated through her divorces. After some back and forth, we settled on an agreement. Carol would pay me $1,000 upfront, with the remainder due a day before the wedding. It seemed like a reasonable compromise, and I reluctantly agreed to babysit her kids as she prepared for her marriage. It's been a long-standing pattern. My older sister, Carol, never invited my mother and me to any of her weddings, citing the pretext of a private affair. However, I knew better. Her past weddings had been grand and extravagant, and the exclusion was a deliberate move to keep us away. Initially, I felt hurt by this, but eventually, I stopped caring. It became evident that she no longer considered us family, and reciprocally, I adopted the same attitude. So, when I agreed to babysit her kids, it was purely transactional, devoid of any sentiment towards my estranged sister. 2 days before her scheduled wedding, I decided to remind her about the agreed-upon payment. Unexpectedly, she did a complete turnaround. declaring that she had changed her mind and would not be paying the remaining amount. Instead, she insisted I consider it part of the wedding gift. Infuriated, I tried to reason with her, but she shut down negotiations, asserting that her decision was final. This only fueled my anger, and I resolved not to let her off the hook. The strain in our relationship had been present since we moved out. As soon as Carol secured a wealthy husband, she began burning bridges, and I was the first one she distanced herself from. Suddenly, we weren't good enough for her to associate with. The shallowness and disregard for family bonds were disheartening. And perhaps I couldn't help but harbor some resentment for the way she had treated us. Taking on the responsibility of watching over her 7 kids for 3 days already, I even enlisted the help of my boyfriend to manage the daunting task. During this time, I overheard 2 of her oldest kids discussing a certain Lucas, name changed. With my headphones on, they thought they were discreetly whispering in front of me, unaware that I could hear them. They were conversing about how Lucas hadn't visited them as promised. The second oldest joked that he might show up at the wedding, just like he did the last time. This revelation led me to the conclusion that Lucas might be someone Carol had been seeing alongside her current partner. However, despite this potentially intrusive information, I chose to keep my mouth shut. After all, my sister's romantic affairs were none of my business. They never had been and still weren't. Despite her last divorce being finalized over 2 years ago, I had chosen to remain silent about my sister Carol's dubious ways. However, when she decided to play games and withhold the money she owed me, the bitterness became too much to bear. Fueled by a sense of frustration, I made a bold decision. I would attend her wedding. Leaving my boyfriend at home to tend to the kids, I drove to the venue and managed to identify Carol's fiancé from her Facebook photos. Seizing the opportunity when my sister wasn't around and the ceremony hadn't commenced, I pulled him aside. In a confidential conversation, I laid bare the truth about Carol. How she schemed, scammed, and baby-trapped men. I highlighted that he had fallen victim to her manipulations and also mentioned the unsettling conversation I overheard her kids having. While I couldn't provide concrete proof for the first part, as I had only heard Carol brag about her schemes once or twice, I knew that her fiancé, armed with this information, might discover something suspicious by going through her phone, emails, and texts. The revelation stemmed from a shared room experience during a visit to our uncle's house, where Carol openly discussed her deceitful actions. Back then, I was horrified by what I heard, and it changed my perception of her. Timing was crucial, and I arrived just half an hour before the scheduled ceremony. Although the man seemed stunned, he thanked me for the information and expressed his intention to investigate. However, he urged me to leave immediately. Aware that my sister would eventually show up, I didn't stick around to witness the aftermath. I left, knowing that I would eventually learn the outcome of the revelation. The aftermath unfolded sooner than I had anticipated. Within an hour or so of my revelation, my sister bombarded me with texts, accusing me of ruining her plan and vowing that I would pay for it. Later that evening, she showed up at my house, unleashing a hysterical tirade while blaming me for supposedly ruining her life. I stood my ground, urging her to take her kids and leave immediately, or else I'd involve Child Protective Services. Eventually, she left, and as she drove away, I caught a glimpse of another guy in the car, validating the claims made by her kids. Despite their abrupt departure, I received a text from my sister the following evening, almost 2 days after the ill-fated wedding. In her message, she lamented that now she and her 7 kids would suffer due to my actions. According to her, she genuinely loved this guy and had no intention of scamming anyone this time. She claimed to be trying to start anew and believed I had ruined her last shot at redemption. Truth be told, I don't have concrete evidence either way. The only thing I could rely on was the fleeting glimpse of someone in the car that day. My sister did appear genuinely distressed when she returned to pick up her kids, leaving room for speculation about the authenticity of her claims. It's a murky situation, and I grapple with the consequences of my decision to interfere in her wedding, questioning the extent of the truth in her assertions. Update 1. I've decided against apologizing or addressing Carol because, frankly, She's not worth the effort. I doubt she can change. Given her track record of scamming men for the past 2 decades, even my boyfriend was skeptical of her sincerity, especially after I shared my suspicions about her having another boyfriend alongside her partner. The kids seemed to be familiar with this Lucas guy, casting doubt on her loyalty. I might have saved her partner from being scammed. And that's probably why she's so upset. On a different note, my mother surprised me by asking me to visit her. It's unusual because she's in her 60s and prefers solitude, rarely reaching out to me specifically. I'm unsure what she wants, but I hope it's not related to Carol or the wedding I supposedly ruined. The last thing I need is a melodramatic showdown. Treating me like a toddler instead of an independent adult capable of making my own decisions. Update 2. Hey there, so I'm back to spill the tea on my seriously messed up family. Just got hit with a couple of bombshells about them, and let me tell you, I had no idea these folks were crazier than I thought. I paid a visit to my mom 3 days ago, and I'm still recovering from that circus because, holy moly, they're messed up. I'll try to keep it short, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around this massive revelation. So, bear with me, folks. My mom rings me up to discuss my sister and her romantic escapades. Just as I expected, she drops the bomb that I need to have a chat with my sister's partner and fix the situation. I'm ticked off that she's taking Carol's side. So I spill the truth about Carol being nothing more than a gold-digging scammer. To my surprise, my mom isn't shocked at all. In fact, she calmly admits she's well aware of it all. Now that's a plot twist. But wait, it gets crazier. Turns out, not only is my mom in the loop, she's part of the scheme. Apparently, Carol has been sending money to my mom every month for the past decade, covering her expenses. Mom's cool with whatever shady business Carol is into because, hey, free money. And here's where it gets even more jaw-dropping, Lucas. This dude who's been my sister's boyfriend since her waitress days is also in on the whole operation. He's cool with it, plays daddy to Carol's kids, and even loves her. Carol and Lucas are like a power couple in the con game. Carol's kids live with Lucas in a separate crib to keep the boyfriends in the dark. They even had a nanny on deck. But plot twist, the nanny caught the flu right before the wedding. Bad timing, right? Lucas couldn't step in because they were in a financial pickle. For a while now, my sister and her family had been living way above their means. Financial struggles hit them hard, and they decided it was time to cut costs. That meant Lucas, my sister's husband, needed to find a job, or they'd soon be running out of money. Desperate for extra help, they turned to me, asking me to babysit. The catch? They hoped I'd do it for free. However, I wasn't about to offer my services without compensation. When I demanded payment, my sister flat out refused to cough up the money owed, sparking a tense situation. The revelation that unfolded was nothing short of crazy. It turned out that everyone, except me, was in on this financial scheme. My sister was the secret financial backer for our mother, uncle, and her boyfriend. Despite mixed feelings about being left out, my mother revealed that they deliberately excluded me to avoid splitting the money further. Apparently, my sister had spilled the truth to me, assuming I wouldn't expose their secret. However, I eventually broke my silence, much to my mother's dismay. She urged me to take action, emphasizing that my sister was banking on her current relationship to secure financial stability. With 7 kids of her own, my sister was tired of this lifestyle and contemplating a shift to more honest means. This was supposed to be her last chance at a prosperous marriage, and she had invested significant effort to win her current partner over. Unfortunately, my revelation about the family's financial shenanigans had dire consequences. The almost husband, having heard my claims, abruptly canceled the wedding without bothering to verify the information. He didn't check her phone or investigate. He simply asked my sister, Carol, and, upon her denial, walked away from the wedding. Now, my mother is desperate and has repeatedly implored me to intervene and convince the guy to reconsider. Despite the urgency of the situation, I find myself paralyzed by the bizarre and messed up nature of it all. Taking in my sister's kids and agreeing to babysit seemed like a harmless favor at first. Now, I regret getting involved as I'm caught up in a web of deceit and uncertain how to navigate this intricate mess. The weight of what I've learned is haunting me, pushing me to take action before I lose my sanity. Update 3. I found myself in an unexpected situation when I ended up at the home of Carol's now ex-fiancé. My mind was a blank slate as I entered his house, armed only with the address my mother had given me for this confrontation. Surprisingly, he allowed me in, perhaps indicating a mutual desire to address lingering issues. He was hospitable, offering me coffee, but my sole intention was to engage in conversation. Without much forethought, I questioned him about the abrupt end to the engagement, wondering why he hadn't verified the information before making such a significant decision. His response was rooted in the horrified expression Carol wore when he inquired about Lucas. He confessed to harboring suspicions about Carol's claim of having no children, noticing her occasional purchases for kids despite her denial. Despite his doubts, love blinded him, and it was only when I revealed the truth about my sister that he realized the illusion he had been living in. Promptly, he decided to end the relationship. In a moment of impulse, I made a request I hadn't considered earlier. I asked him not to pursue legal action against my sister. Surprisingly, he agreed, expressing a desire to move on quickly without seeking revenge. He didn't want to drag her through legal battles, he simply wanted to distance himself from the situation. This request stemmed from a pragmatic understanding that legal repercussions could devastate my family, considering the ex-fiancé's wealth and potential legal resources. Recognizing the potential harm that could befall my sister, my mother, and even myself, I didn't advocate for reconciliation or ask him to reconsider the relationship. It seemed clear that the damage was irreparable. For several years, I had kept silent about my sister's lifestyle, and I was prepared to continue doing so. I sought to avoid unnecessary drama, especially considering the dubious character of her previous two husbands who, in my opinion, got what they deserved. However, this ex-fiancé appeared to be different, somewhat decent, and my decision to spare him unnecessary legal entanglements felt like the right course of action. I've decided to end my involvement with my sister and mother, marking what I believe to be the final favor I'll do for them. I ensured that my sister wouldn't be sued, but I can't continue associating with them in good conscience. I've already gone above and beyond for them, and I'm starting to question my own moral standing. I admit that I was complicit in helping my sister conceal her wrongdoings, justifying it to myself by thinking those men deserved it. However, that doesn't absolve any of us from the fact that we're all messed up. I don't see myself as a good person anymore. The reality is that my sister, my mother, and I are all flawed individuals. Despite my efforts, the drama and anxiety surrounding my family have become overwhelming. I live a nice life, and I can't comprehend why my sister couldn't have done the same for herself. Regardless, I've decided not to judge her or my mother any longer. Instead, I've chosen to distance myself from them. The turning point was a meeting with Carol's ex, which made me realize that the only way out of this mess is to sever ties with my family. It's a difficult decision, but there seems to be no other way. Reflecting on our strained relationship, I wonder how I held on for so long. Perhaps, deep down, I just wanted to feel like I still had a family. However, that desire has dissipated and I no longer wish to cling to these connections. Update 4. Today, I took the step of informing my mom about my decision to sever ties with our family. I called her and explained my choice, requesting that they respect my wish not to be contacted again. During our conversation, I shared the details of my discussion with Carol's ex. While he assured me he wouldn't sue my sister, he made it clear that he wouldn't take her back. My mom was visibly upset about my inability to convince him, but she didn't attempt to persuade me to stay. She simply acknowledged my freedom to choose my path. In a somber tone, she expressed that if cutting ties brought me happiness, she had nothing more to say. With that, she disconnected the call without uttering another word. I wasn't shocked by her apparent lack of concern, as I knew my family had a selfish streak. Unable to offer them anything they needed, I became dispensable. It was a sad realization, but there was no point in dwelling on it. I conveyed the same message to my sister, opting for a text message to avoid dealing with her potential hysterics and theatrics on the phone. Predictably, she responded with hostility, accusing me once again of deliberately ruining her life out of jealousy. According to her, I was a miserable and bitter woman destined to be unloved. Little does she know, I've been in a steady relationship with my boyfriend for 3 years, and we're planning to get married in the near future. Despite the disappointment that neither of them seemed to care, I hadn't expected anything different from them. On the bright side, I reminded myself that I would no longer have to endure their drama. My sister can now live her life with her 7 children, and I wish them good luck. Update 5. Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I last updated this thread, as I was using a throwaway account and nearly forgot about it. However, I finally remembered the password today and thought I'd share a little update on what's been happening in my life. It's been almost a year since my last post, and I'm thrilled to announce that I'm happily married. A few months back, my then boyfriend, now husband, had to travel extensively for work. However, he's currently in a desk job, so we thought it was the perfect time to tie the knot and start living together. He has become my family now, and I couldn't be happier about it. We've built a life together, and it's been an incredible journey. As for my biological family, I haven't had any contact with them for a year, and I plan to keep it that way. Surprisingly, they haven't tried to reach out to me either, and I'm grateful for the peace it has brought into my life. My husband and I have found everything we need in each other. Stay tuned for more stories from our channel. I'm excited to share more updates and experiences as we continue this journey together.